By the end of this, you will have made more money than any soldier in your unit. You will have operated in places that don't exist on official maps, under orders that were never written down, for clients your government will categorically deny having hired. You will have a dental plan. You will not have a flag on your coffin. The question is not whether this bothers you. The question is when you stopped answering that question honestly. Level 1. The operator. You left the military 14 months ago. The Transition Assistance Program gave you a resume workshop and a pamphlet about VA benefits. The pamphlet is accurate. The benefits are real. The wait time to access them is, on average, 35 days for primary care and 4 months for mental health services. You are fine. You tell the VA you are fine because the alternative is a process, and you have spent a decade being a person who does not require a process. The Transition Assistance Program also gave you a contact, former colleague, 12 years in, then out, now doing security consulting in the Gulf. He calls it consulting. The contract he sends you calls it Armed Protective Services. The rate is $650 a day. You are making $3,400 a month in uniform. You do the math in the parking lot of a Chili's in Fayetteville and you say yes before you finish the calculation. The first thing that surprises you is how familiar it feels. Same gear, same drills, same vocabulary. The entire operational framework is identical because the people who designed it are the same people who trained you. The second thing that surprises you is the clients. You are guarding a logistics convoy through a country where the State Department has a travel advisory level 4. Do not travel. Level 4 means U.S. government personnel are not supposed to be here. You are not U.S. government personnel. You are a subcontractor of a contractor retained by a third-party firm that holds a classified annex on a defense contract, the text of which you have not read and are not cleared to read. You are, on paper, here to protect commercial interests. The convoy is carrying equipment that the manifest describes as communications hardware. You do not ask what the communications hardware is for. You were not trained to ask. You were trained to protect the box, not understand it. You are good at this. That is the honest part. The work is real and you are genuinely skilled, and when the threat is a physical problem, your body solves it without consultation. The first time something moves in the darkness on the north side of the road, you react before you think, and it's correct. The threat assessment is correct. The response is proportionate, and for 3 seconds afterward, moving through the dark with your hands steady and your breathing controlled, you feel something that you have not felt since your last deployment. You feel like you are doing the thing you were built to do. Then it passes. It always passes. The gap between those 3 seconds and the rest of the day is the thing nobody puts in the brochure. Level 2, the contractor. You have been back twice. You are now contracting directly, not through a colleague's referral, but through a company that has an office in McLean, Virginia, and a second office in Dubai, and a third address in the Cayman Islands that handles billing. Your rate is $850 a day. The difference between $650 and $850 is not your improved value. You are the same operator you were 14 months ago. The difference is that you now understand enough about the structure to negotiate. You signed your first contract without reading page 11. Page 11 contains the immunity clause. The immunity clause says that the company is not liable for actions taken in the performance of duties under contract, and that any legal exposure arising from operations in country is the individual operator's responsibility, unless specifically indemnified in a separate rider. The rider requires a written request submitted 30 days in advance of any operation. No one submits the request. No one explains the 30-day rule. You learn this from a South African operator named Kobus, who has been doing this for 16 years and has read every contract he has ever signed, and who tells you, without emotion, that the immunity clause is not written to protect you. It is written to create a documented record that you were informed of your exposure, which is a different thing. Kobus is not bitter about this. He is matter-of-fact about it the way a mechanic is matter-of-fact about brake wear. Systems degrade. This is the system. He has a daughter in Cape Town who is 12 and to whom he sends money every month. He has not seen her in 9 months. He mentions this once in the context of explaining that $850 a day compounds well over 12-month rotations if you keep your overhead low. He does not mention her again. Level 3, the specialist. Your third rotation is different. You are not guarding a convoy. You are part of a 6-person team with a specific operational mandate in a country where no PMC is officially permitted to operate. The mandate is classified at a level that was explained to you verbally, not in writing, by a man in a polo shirt who met you in a hotel lobby in Amman and handed you a USB drive and a flight itinerary and said, "Read it, memorize it, delete it." You did. The USB drive contained a mission brief, a list of local contacts, rules of engagement that were considerably more permissive than anything you operated under in uniform, and a payment schedule. The payment is $1,400 a day. There is no flag on the mission. There is no flag because there is no mission, officially. There is no mission, because if there were a mission, there would be questions about who authorized it and under what legal framework and which committee was briefed, and the answers to those questions are inconvenient. You are the answer to the inconvenience. The country needed something done. The something could not be done officially. The PMC industry exists because sometimes the gap between what needs to happen and what can be acknowledged is wider than a government can bridge with its own people. You understand this. You tell yourself that understanding it is the same as accepting it. It is not. But the distinction takes years to surface, and right now the mission is clear and your team is competent, and there is work to do. Level 4, the team leader. You are now responsible for 8 operators, 3 Americans, 1 Briton, 2 South Africans, 1 Australian, 1 man whose passport says he is Swiss and who has not offered any additional information and whom you have not asked. Your contract is with a firm that is itself under contract to a second firm that holds a classified annex on a State Department program that a Senate subcommittee approved in a session that was closed to the public. The chain of accountability from you to the policy decision has 7 links. The decision makers at the top will never meet you. If something goes wrong on the ground, the chain collapses from your end. You have watched this happen to other team leaders. The investigation always begins with who gave the order on the ground. The person who gave the policy order is 7 links away and has a lawyer. Your team is good. The problem with a good team is that a good team does what it is told. And what it is told comes from clients who are not soldiers, have never been soldiers, and who evaluate operational decisions through a PowerPoint briefing in a climate-controlled room in a building with a gym. You make adjustments they never see and never know were necessary. At 3 a.m. one morning, you abort a vehicle checkpoint that was approved at the highest level of your command chain because the crowd around it has shifted in a way that makes the approved plan a guaranteed engagement. You call it off. The client is not happy. You file a report explaining the decision in operational terms. The report is 3 pages. The client's frustration is 1 email. The email reaches your handler before the report does. This is the moment you understand the actual structure. You are not the person who executes strategy. You are the buffer between strategy and consequence. The strategy is designed by people who will not be present for the consequence. You are always present for the consequence. Level 5, the principal. You are now running operations, not executing them, running them. 3 active contracts in 2 countries, a support cell in a 3rd, a staff of 46, a budget with the classification level above your own clearance for the client's allocation side. You have not held a weapon in the field for 11 months. You have held 6 phones simultaneously in a hotel room in a city you cannot name while coordinating an extraction that was not going correctly and that needed to go correctly in the next 40 minutes. It did. It went correctly because you spent the previous 4 days mapping contingencies that the client's original plan had not included. and because you had a local contact whose phone number you memorized in 2019 and never wrote down anywhere, and because when the primary route closed, you had already positioned assets on the secondary route 2 hours earlier. And the client never knew about the secondary route because the client's briefing would have generated approval questions that would have consumed 40 minutes you did not have. This is what you are paid for, not the execution, the 48 hours before the execution that the client does not see and would not understand. Your monthly draw is $28,000. This sounds like a number that resolves the earlier equations. The contract is renewed every 6 months. There is no pension. There is no healthcare continuity clause. Coverage ends 48 hours after the contract expires. There is no provision for repatriation of remains. You have a clause that specifies remains recovery will be attempted where operationally feasible. Operationally feasible is not defined. You know this because Kobus told you to read page 11, and now you read every page. In 2007, Blackwater operators opened fire in Nisour Square, Baghdad. 17 Iraqi civilians died. The contractors initially claimed hostile engagement. Investigation found no credible evidence of hostile fire. 4 contractors were charged. The charges were contested for 9 years through multiple legal cycles. The cases were ultimately resolved without the full accountability that prosecutors sought, in part because of the structure of the contracting chain, the gap between who pulled the trigger and who authorized the framework in which the trigger was pulled. The 14 families buried their dead. The legal outcome was described by defense attorneys as a victory for the rule of law. The rule of law, in this case, was the same rule of law written into page 11. In 2023, Wagner Group forces sustained catastrophic losses near Bakhmut. Estimates put Wagner dead at between 9,000 and 30,000 across the Ukraine campaign. The range itself tells you something about who is keeping records. The men came from prisons and from contracts and from countries where $2,000 a month represents a calculation that people make when the alternative is worse. Wagner's founder died in a plane crash 8 months after leading an armed insurrection against the Russian military. The official investigation concluded the crash was not an assassination. The official investigation was conducted by the government against which he had recently led an armed insurrection. The men who died at Bakhmut have no official monument. Their families received payments through mechanisms that are not acknowledged to exist. There is a pattern. The pattern is not complicated. Governments need things done that they cannot do officially. Private contractors do those things. The contractors operate under legal frameworks designed to protect the client, not the operator. When things go wrong, the legal framework performs as designed. The operator is at the end of the accountability chain and the beginning of the consequence chain. This arrangement is not a flaw in the system. This arrangement is the system. You are 51 years old. You have a hip that needs replacement. The VA wait time is 6 months, and you are no longer technically a veteran in the VA's coverage framework because you separated under circumstances that created a documentation gap that takes 18 months to resolve. Your current contract expires in 90 days. The renewal conversation has not happened yet. In the private military industry, a contract that has not been renewed 90 days before expiration is usually a contract that is not being renewed. Your handler's emails have become shorter. You know what shorter emails mean. You have watched it happen to other people. You told yourself it would be different because your record was different. Your record is not visible to the people making the renewal decision. Your record lives in files with classification levels above the clearance of the people reviewing your contract. The dental is excellent. You are still inside. The contract ends. The system does not.